I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the research proposal document. So that's one of the 4 documents you would need to submit. So in a nutshell, I'm going to explain what a research proposal is and what we're looking for in that research proposal. And then I'll give you some examples to kind of help you think about preparing your own. Okay, so let me start then. What exactly is a research proposal? So this research proposal is an opportunity for you to express yourself and explain research that really excites you. So it's an opportunity to communicate that project well, but also succinctly. So as with all of our documents, there are word limits, and this particular document has a maximum word count of 700 words. But it should be longer than 300. So anywhere between 300 and 700 words. So it's not long. It's roughly 1.5 pages maximum. So what we're looking for is for you to explain what excites you about that particular area of research, and can you get that idea across in a succinct form. The other thing that I want to highlight here is that you should illustrate the potential impact of the project. So what will be the outcome, and how will it influence either yourself, the field that you're doing the research in, your company that you're working for, or whatever it is? What will be the potential impact of your research? So those are the 4 main things, and I'll break that down a little bit for you in the next slides. But the key thing to bear in mind here is that I want you to show us how you think, and I want you to show us how you communicate. So those are the 2 really most important things. Now, in terms of how you prepare and consider what to put in the proposal, I think the 2 key questions would be for you to ask yourself, why is the research necessary? So is there a demand? And indeed, has the problem that you're proposing already been solved? Right? So there's no point proposing an area of research where actually we know the answer to that particular question. And you should ask yourself, is there a demand for that knowledge? Who else, other than yourself, is going to be interested in that? So that's the first bit of the first question that I'd ask myself. The second one is about who are the beneficiaries of the research. So the beneficiaries are somebody or an organization that will take that research and use it for their own activity. So that could be an industry sector. It could be a specific company or organization. There might be a societal benefit that benefits, the whole of the UK. Or it could be very broad and influence the entire UK economy in some way, right? So think about, other than yourself, who is going to be able to use the output of your research, and how is it going to influence their work? Now, I should say that as you're preparing this research proposal, don't think that you're going to be bound to do that research project if you're selected onto the program. So as I said, this is about showing us how you think and how you communicate. The actual proposal you put forward is subject to us being able to find a matching supervisor. There's no point taking you on to do a research project where we don't have an academic with expertise able to supervise you in that work. It just wouldn't work, right? So that's why we're not going to bind you to that research proposal. Now, I mentioned academic supervision, and that's absolutely essential when it comes to research degrees. So you want to do that research collaboratively with your doctoral supervisor. And so it's important that we make that match well. And I would recommend that you start contacting potential supervisors now, and you can find links to our supervisors on the data-centric engineering webpage, or later in these slides when the slides are circulated to you. Now, we can also assist in finding a suitable supervisor for you as well. So just contact us if you don't know where to start. The projects will be adapted and refined together with your supervisor if you're successful on the program. So again, it's not something that's set in stone, and once you've written it, that's it. That's what you're going to do for the next 4 years. It's a constant process of adaptation, refinement, and development. Okay. So that's the idea of the research proposal. Let me now come on to the structure. So how do you think about preparing one, and how should you structure that research proposal? So this slide sort of illustrates that in a simple, straightforward way, I hope. So the first thing, of course, is give it a title. So you need to know what is the research that you're going to do, and you want to get that across in a short phrase that is making it immediately obvious to the reader what that research proposal is about. So finding a catchy title really helps as well, because it grabs attention. It's not necessary. You can have a rather straightforward, plain title if you like, but the key point is that it should be very clear what you mean and what you're trying to do. So that, I think, is fairly obvious. Then you break it down into various sections, and the first section would be the background, I would say. It doesn't have to be titled that, but essentially you could call it an introduction or something like this. But essentially the idea of that first section is to give the background to the problem. So what is the problem, and what's the current state-of-the-art knowledge in that particular area? So what are the approaches that other people have used here? And where are where's the work face, as it were. So state the problem and give it some background. The next part is about the questions. So we know from the title what the proposal is about, but can you break it down into a series of questions or research questions that you're going to investigate, where you get across what exactly is the challenge? So it's one thing to say, I'm going to do research in developing a new robotic hand, but can you explain what the challenge is, right? So what are the problems that you're going to address when it comes to building this robotic hand, and why is it actually needed, right? So why do we want to do this research? The next section is about research methods. So this is an opportunity for you to think about not only what the research challenges are, but how technically you're going to address them. In other words, what facilities and techniques are you going to use? So what's your methodology? So how are you going to approach the first part of the problem? What do you need in order to solve that problem? Does it require large computing resources? Do you need access to data sets which you don't have at the moment? Do you need advanced statistical skills in order to be able to analyze some of these large data sets? Do you need access to a large electron microscope in order to study the structure of some material? So all of these things you should try and identify and explain it in your research method or methodology part of the proposal. The next part is the work plan and the schedule. So this is also quite important, because it tells us how well you can break down the problem, think about how long it's going to take each sub-problem to be solved, and then put that together as a work package of activity that might span, anything up to 4 years, the full duration of the doctorate itself. So can you outline a schedule of work for this particular research proposal? So that's quite important, because it helps us understand how you're thinking about the problem and breaking it down. And then the last bit is the bibliography. So include a short bibliography, and that's excluded from the word count. It doesn't have to necessarily include academic journal papers, because we're not expecting you to already be experts in the field right now. However, if you are aware of academic journals that you've read that are relevant to the proposal, then by all means put them in. But try and evidence the claims that you're making through the bibliography. And that's quite important, because it shows us how this is more than just an idea that you've thought up. You've actually tried to work that idea through to see where the problems are, to see what other people are doing in this area. And we can have a look at that in the bibliography ourselves if we want to do that. So that's the structure of the research proposal. Now, let me come on to what the proposal should look like. So as I said, it's strictly 700 words maximum, excluding the bibliography. But in that, we want you to describe at least one and no more than 2 projects. So the engineering doctorate allows you to work on up to 4 research projects, but for this proposal, we'd like you to focus on 1 or possibly 2 research proposals. And again, that's because of the word limit. We want you to focus on 1 or 2 things and do that really well. So there's not much space for your proposal. So what you need to show us is clearly structured thought, the ability to plan out your project in terms of timeline and resources, how informed you are regarding the background knowledge. And then what you should always try and do is match the proposal to the skills and competencies that you have, right? So there's no point proposing a research proposal in advanced software engineering, for example, if you really have no expertise here, right? So sure, there will be training courses and opportunities for you to upskill, but if you've really no background in this area, it's going to be very difficult for you to make progress in that short amount of time. So always think about how the research proposal is going to be supported by the skills and competencies that you put through in the other document that Nick was talking about. So below, I want to list some things for you to consider. We don't expect all of these to be present within your research proposal, but it's some ideas for you to think about how you're writing your proposal. So think about the research problem from more than one perspective. So there's the perspective of you as the researcher, but can you think about the problem from an industry perspective, for example? So how will a relevant business think about this research problem, and will it be relevant to them? Will it help them do their business, for example? Have you thought about the resources needed? So hopefully the answer to that is yes, because that was one of the sections that we talked about, but also think about how are you going to acquire them? So if you need a large data set, for example, where are you going to get that from? So think about that. Are there any ethical considerations? Are you going to need to use a lot of people's personal data, for example? So think about any ethical considerations that might be relevant for your research. And this is a tricky one, the next one. Are you framing the right research question? So this requires quite some thought. You've obviously come up with a proposal and a program of research activity, but have you broken it down to the right research questions to help solve those problems and advance the research itself? And then finally, can you articulate why it's interesting? So that enthusiasm that you have really should come across in the documents, because after all, if you're selected, you're going to be working on this project for up to 4 years. So it really needs to be exciting and interesting to you, and we want to see that in the document. Now, I want to reiterate that in-depth academic knowledge and the state of the art in that particular area is not necessary for the research proposal. But if you do have it, then by all means tell us about it. So include it if it's there. But we're not expecting you to already have a doctorate, for example. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Right, so I'm going to end this session just with 3 short examples of a research proposal. And obviously I'm not presenting the entire document, but just some bullet points here. And I'll talk through why some are good and some are not so good. So here's 3 examples of proposals. The first one is titled Research into New Black Holes. Now, this is a very exciting topic. It led to the Nobel Prize for Physics in 2020, but the title is a bit vague. What exactly are you going to investigate, right? So research into new black holes doesn't really tell us what you're actually going to do. It doesn't sound to me like data-centric engineering. It sounds like a lot of perhaps theoretical physics, but it doesn't sound like data-centric engineering, at least from the title. Do you have the necessary skills in general relativity? So this is the theoretical framework by which we want to understand black holes. Do you have background? Do you have a background in general relativity? You may well do, but then please write about it. Will industry partners be willing to participate? Now that's quite a problem. I don't really see that, so probably not. But there might be companies who are interested in particular aspects of this, and if so, you should put that in the proposal. It doesn't sound like applied research to me. It sounds like discovery research. So that's one example that I wanted to share with you. The next one has the title, Building a Large-Scale Distributed Database for Financial Assets. Okay, now that's got a very clear title. I think I understand what that proposal is going to be about and what it aims to do. However, the big problem here is that there's no research element. At least I don't see it from the title. This sounds to me like an application of existing technology. We've got, many different types of databases available. We can have large ones and small ones. We can scale them up to be absolutely enormous databases to handle various data sets. But we know we know that this is a solved problem, right? We in principle know how to do this. So it's not clear to me what the challenge is. This is a solved problem as far as I can see. So that's probably not a very good research proposal. Finally, let's come on to the last one, using machine learning to increase vehicle fuel efficiency. So immediately that sounds like a good topic to me. It's a good title, maybe not a very catchy one, but it's obvious, I think, what the proposal is trying to achieve. So it's a good topic. There's potential interest from many industry organizations. You can imagine many car manufacturers are interested in this. It's clearly a data-centric engineering because it's about improving vehicles and machines that we're making. However, you will need some background in vehicle design engineering or something similar along those lines. So maybe you have it, maybe you don't. If you don't, then that's a bit of a red flag. But if you do, then that's great. Sounds like a very good and interesting topic. So those are three sorts of examples where I hope I've tried to explain how to put the proposal together, but how to make it work for you by addressing the skills and competencies that you have on your CV. One very final tip before I hand back to Gabby is that as you're putting these this proposal and actually the other documents together as well, it's a good idea to create an outline document with bullet point headings and then to reorder the bullet points to make sure that you've got a logical flow. So you have bullet point 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each of those bullets is making a point. So then you rearrange them to make sure that each of those points has a strict logical flow to it and it makes sense in the way that you're explaining it. Then assign a rough word count to each of those bullet points, which represents a paragraph in order of importance. So the most important paragraph should presumably have the larger word count. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and just draft each paragraph. And here's the important point. I'd strongly suggest that you then forget about that draft for 1 or 2 days. Just don't even think about it. Don't even open the document again. Go and do something else. But then after 2 or 3 days, come back to it and read it with fresh eyes, reorder the sections if necessary, and then cut the word count by, let's say, 20%, but do it without losing any content. So as you read it with fresh eyes, you'll see that you've got words in there which you don't need. It's a fact that when we're verbally speaking, we're using many more words than we need to when we're writing. And that's much easier to see if you're looking at your written document with fresh eyes. So cut the word count and then repeat that process if you have time. And that process has the advantage that it really helps you focus on what's important, and it will make your final draft much tighter and more consistent with a smooth logical flow to it. Okay, so I hope that's useful to you. I'm going to stop my share there and hand back to Gabby.
Okay, thanks very much, Eram. Okay, I just wanted to spend a few more words on how to go about identifying and contacting a prospective supervisor. And that's because if it's something that we haven't done before, we might not know where to start. And it might be good just to have a few hints and tips about this one. How to identify a potential research supervisor will slightly depend on which route you're going to apply for, the professional doctoral scholar route or the enterprise doctoral scholar route, but it won't vary very much. All the information I'm covering with this presentation is on our website at that web link in purple at the top. If you're applying for the PDS route, it is a useful thing to do to start by answering the 2 questions that you can see on the screen. So what is your current research activity at work as part of your job? And in which areas of this research activity do you foresee the need for academic input? And once you've answered these 2 questions, which by the way are also part of the or one of the documents you need to submit, you will have a pretty good idea of the type of expertise that you're looking for, or at least a research area that you're looking for expertise in. And at that point, you can visit our research webpage, where you will find the links to our 5 schools that Eram mentioned earlier on. And depending on the type of expertise that you're looking for, you should be able to get to academic staff profiles and explore what QMUL has to offer. I will show you a couple of screenshots later on in the next couple of slides to show you what I mean by that webpage. If you're an EDS applicant, you have 2 ways of going about this. One is very similar to the PDS way. So if you have your own research idea, again, you can go to our research webpage and you will find the links to our 5 schools. So if you've got an idea of what type of expertise you're looking for in a research supervisor, have a look at the research group within each of our schools and do a little bit of research and get in touch with someone that whose expertise seems to match your interests to discuss your idea. If you don't have your own research idea, then you can have a look at a sort of a sub-page of our research webpage, which is called Research Projects on Offer. And this lists all examples of projects that are being offered as part of our CDT for EDS applicants. Each project has a supervisor listed and an abstract, obviously, about the project. So you can contact the supervisor listed to discuss your interest in that particular project. Now, these are examples and they're not an exhaustive list, but they'll give you a pretty good idea of what's on offer as well. And also the projects are organized or arranged by school. So you can, if you have a broad interest in computer science, for example, you'll be able to check what's on offer within that school, within our CDT. So just a couple of screenshots just to give you an idea of what I was talking about. For PDS applicants and for EDS applicants with their own research idea, you go to our research webpage. You see the 5 links to the 5 schools on the screen. Let's say you're interested in electronic engineering, and in particular, you're interested in antennas, for example. If you click on that link, it will take you to a page with the research groups within that school. You can have a look at the antennas group, and if you click on find out more, it will take you to a page where all the academic staff profiles are listed with their interests, their profiles, and their contact details. So that's how you can have a look and find someone that you think you might work with. If instead you're an EDS applicant and you don't quite have your own research idea, but you'd like to see what's on offer, you need to go to that webpage at the top of this slide. And again, the projects being offered as part of our CDT are arranged by school. So let's say that you're interested in the broad area of electronic engineering and computer science. You click on that link and you'll find the list of projects. And I would like to highlight 2 projects today, just to give you a flavor of what's on offer. And the first one is this project called Causal AI using EHR data for clinical decision support. And this is a very interesting project, which we're offering in partnership with Canon Medical Research Europe. They're based in Edinburgh, and the successful candidate would have the opportunity to either join the program from Edinburgh or obviously to join the program from wherever they're based with regular visits to Edinburgh and to QMUL campus. So this project will be supervised by a principal scientist at Canon Medical Research Europe and the QMUL member of staff. And it's one of a kind in that this project will be mostly based with Canon. So the bulk of the research that you would be doing as part of this project would be with obviously with a company, and that would more than make up for the placement activity that is part of our program for the EDS route. All the other projects listed, and I'm quoting another example here, are projects instead proposed by our QMUL academics. So they're mostly based at QMUL with obviously regular visits to campus. and placement activity built into the program, as you know from last week. So do check out what projects are on offer if you're an EDS applicant or prospective applicant and you don't quite have your own research idea. And you might find something that you have the skill set for. So once you've identified someone, what do you do with that piece of information? Well, you get in touch with them and discussing your research interest is actually a very important part of the application process. And that's because it will enable you, obviously, to bounce ideas back and forth and develop the proposal that you will submit as part of your application. And also you get to know the person that you'll be working for possibly 4 years. So it's a very important step and we'd like you to take ownership of that step. Obviously, if you're lost and you need some support, do get in touch with us. But as far as you can, do some background research. So when you're getting in touch, if you don't know where to start, this is quite a useful template, I suppose. You can include a short introduction about yourself, your background in terms of work experience or skills, etc. State that you are interested in applying to the Centre for Doctoral Training, to our Centre for Doctoral Training. And if you're bringing your own research idea, give an indication of what that is and why you would be interested in working with this particular academic. Or if you're applying for a project proposed by this academic, then perhaps explain why you're interested in it and what skill set you would bring to the project. And then ask if it's possible to perhaps have a follow-up call or a meeting to discuss the project and the proposal together. So I hope this is a helpful sort of template to make the first step. There are some more tips that hopefully you won't need, but just some good practice to try and avoid. And really the bottom line is to think about why is it that you want to work with that specific person with that specific expertise. So that's something to think about before you get in touch with them. Right, so we've concluded, I suppose, the research proposal part, just a recap of the supporting documents needed. And now I will focus on the self-reflective summary and the CV, starting with the self-reflective summary. So this is quite a brief statement. We introduced it earlier on. It's maximum 500 words, which really works out as 1 page of A4. And it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate self-awareness and self-reflection on your own training and development needs. And in particular, what we'd like to know is what do you think your development needs are? So what skills do you think you need to develop or learn in order to carry out the proposed project at doctoral level? And also, how will our program help you to achieve those aims or to develop those skills? How will you engage with our program to develop the skills that you need? And that should give us an indication of what your goals and motivations are as well. So it's really an opportunity for you to reflect on this and for us to have a look at what your motivations are and what your self-awareness or awareness of training needs and development is. I said I would only have a slide on that one, and I only have a slide on the CV as well. Just some hints and tips, because the CV that we're looking for is not just a CV that you are, any old CV that you got. Obviously, you've got to refresh it and make sure it's updated for this application, but also you should provide a version of your CV that clearly states or that clearly shows us how you meet the program entry criteria and also the residency criterion as well. And what does this mean? It means that we're looking for the what. So we're looking for the type of work experience that you've had, because that will give us an indication also of the skills that are relevant to the research you're proposing. We're also looking at how long have you had experience for, obviously, because one of our criteria is at least 3 years work experience in STEM. So do make sure that you give us an indication of obviously how long each individual experience that you're telling us about was for. And also the where, I suppose, because that can clearly show us whether or not you meet the residency criteria to establish funding eligibility. So the what, the how long, and the where, I suppose. And that applies even if you're using a skills-based CV. So if you're focusing on your skills rather than going chronologically by work experience, you still need to kind of show us how you meet the criteria of what type of experience you've got, how long, and where. So this is obviously an application process, so it's a shared responsibility. We have a responsibility of obviously reading your CV, and you have the responsibility of helping us understand how you meet our criteria. So hopefully that was useful in terms of the final supporting documents. So to recap, online application form that asks you for these main bits and pieces. The supporting documents we've covered, there are 4 of them. And now I'm going to spend a few more words on the online application form, and I'm going to show you how these 2 bits come together. So basically where you're going to upload the supporting documents in the online application form. So on our applications webpage, and by the way, once I upload the slide, which will go live on our website by the end of this week, you'll be able to clearly click on these links that you see underlined. So you don't have to make a note of these necessarily. So our application link is available on our applications webpage, and the link takes you straight to the right online portal. So you didn't need to worry that you're applying to the right program, because it takes you straight there. And as I said, by the end of this week, all the videos will be uploaded to the webpage and refreshed, and the slides will be there as well. End of the week, Monday, the very latest. And there will be a presentation at the very bottom of the page that you can see at the bottom of this slide, with a presentation taking you through the online process screen by screen. So you can actually go through the online application form while watching the presentation screen by screen, side by side. So where do you upload the supporting documents? So this is basically a summary of the online application form. Some of these things are really straightforward, so I won't go through these ones in detail, but I just want to show you where to upload the supporting documents. Some of them are straightforward. So the CV clearly goes in the experience section of the online application, and this section will actually ask you for a CV, so you can't miss it. The research proposal section of the online application form will ask you for your research proposal. However, this is not a compulsory document, but it is compulsory for our own application process. So do make sure that you upload your research proposal here. What happens to the other 2 documents, the competency statement and the self-reflective summary? Right, there is a screen called personal statement in the application form. Please do pay attention here, because it's not really straightforward. This is because the QMUL, obviously, application portal is for all research programs at QMUL. But as you've been hearing about the whole, for the past hour and a bit, our process is bespoke. So we do require slightly different documents. So what happens to the competency statement and the self-reflective summary? So we've got a screen called personal statement, but we don't actually want a personal statement. So disregard the instructions on this screen. You still have a form to upload, and this is called the personal statement form. And the personal statement form can be found again on the same webpage, the applications webpage. I'll show you a screenshot in a second. It's got a drop-down menu, and one of the menu options is called how to apply, and it tells you everything I've been telling you for the past 5 minutes. And under how to apply, you will find a Word document called personal statement form. You download this document, you fill it in, you upload it in the place instead of a personal statement. And I'm very happy to answer any questions if this is confusing during the Q&A. So basically, this is what it looks like. That's the applications webpage. We've got someone joining us, so I'll just unbit them. This is the applications webpage. If you open up the menu, how to apply, if you have a look towards point 3, that's where you can find the personal statement form in a Word document. You download that. And question 1 on the personal statement form is your competency statement. Question 2 is the self-reflective summary, and question 3 is only for professional doctoral scholars applicants. So if you're an EDS applicant, you can leave that blank and just upload the form as it is. So again, personal statement form, question 1, competency statement, question 2, self-reflective summary, question 3 for PDS only. Download, fill in, save, and upload instead of a standard personal statement. Please don't forget this step. The video that I just mentioned will have step-by-step guidance. So do watch the video if you're getting confused or if you're worried of missing this out. So this is just another slide that tells you exactly the same thing in a different way. So I won't go through it, but it's just a summary, a visual summary, reminding you where the supporting documents go. Selection criteria. The same webpage will also tell you about our selection criteria, but very briefly, we want to obviously receive applications that are complete and that meet the entry criteria. So that's the first check, and that's something I do as soon as we receive your applications, a couple of weeks, a week or two after you submitted it. Then we will shortlist and select applications on the basis of the following points. That the application demonstrates obviously competencies, and we'll look at the competency statement for that. Relevant work experience, we'll look at the CV for that. Your research potential, which will be assessed via the research proposal, and obviously an awareness of your training and development needs. And that's what the self-reflective summary is for. So do check out the selection criteria, again, available on our website as well. Right, I've only got a couple of slides which will clarify the next steps and the timelines, because it's always good to know, especially if you'd like to plan things in advance. So there are 8 steps to submit your application, but the good news is you're already at step 3 because you're here with us today. This is workshop 2. The other steps we've already talked about. I just wanted to highlight step 7, which is next week and on the 12th of April. So we're running 2 application support sessions. So if you start the application and suddenly you have some questions or you have nagging doubts or something like that, do sign up for one of our application support sessions that Eram and I are going to be doing. And they will be Q&A based. So just come along and ask your questions or ask for advice if you need it. And then the deadline is the 19th of April, as you know. This will also be uploaded to our website for you to have a look at as well. So application timeline. So what happens once you've submitted an application? And we very much hope that obviously you will. So what happens after the 19th of April? We won't receive your application right away because it sits with the admissions team, who will have a first look at QMUL entry criteria, and they will pass it on to me, and I will make sure that the application is complete. So do keep an eye on your email, because just in case you've forgotten a document, I will follow up with you, obviously. Then the team will meet and draw a short list on the basis of the criteria that we just looked at. But towards mid-May, I will write to you, regardless of the outcome of your application, to let you know how the process has gone so far, if you're unsuccessful on this occasion, or if you're being invited to an interview. We're doing 2 interviews, nothing to worry about, especially the first one is quite informal. It will be with me and Eram. It will be more getting to know you and knowing your goals and motivations. And then there will be a sort of research/competency interview with the proposed supervisor and the rest of the CDT team, which will take, again, roughly 30 minutes. And we'll give you at least 5 days notice, but please do make a note of the interview dates if you submit an application, and make sure that you're around. We're trying to schedule those at lunchtime and early evenings because we're aware that people have got other commitments. But if you can't make a specific slot or more than one, then do let me know so that I can arrange as well as I can, obviously. And after the interviews, we'll compare notes and we'll draw a list of offers and a reserve list. And again, I will get in touch with everyone to let you know about the outcome of your application. But around the 24th, 25th of June, you will know whether you've been offered the studentship or not. You will get a studentship offer letter that you will need to obviously accept or reject. And if you accept, within 10 working days, so a couple of weeks, you'll receive a formal offer of admission to the program via the online portal. That will happen towards mid-July. So that's 10 working days or so. The program starts at the end of September with induction the week before. And I'm aware that this is a lot of information. So all of this will be on our website for you to double check again and put those dates in your diary as well.